Hello, my name is Nathan Palaskis and I'm a business management major and an Air Force ROTC member. I have chosen the U.S. Space Force as my topic because of its relation to the Air Force and my military background. The goal of my presentation is to enlighten you on how the U.S. Space Force would affect international relations. What is the U.S. Space Force? The Space Force has been proposed by the Trump administration and is planned to be a new branch of the military. This means it is currently non-existent and the program will still have to pass through Congress. Vice President Mike Pence stated that the Space Force would be an elite group of joint warfighters specializing in the domain of space. How the Air Force and Space Force relate. The Air Force history shares a lot in common with the proposed Space Force. The Air Force received much criticism when seen as unnecessary, such as the Space Force is today. An Air Force could be used to penetrate behind enemy lines, while space tech could potentially be used the same way, and each branch would be able to attack locations without putting any troops on the ground. It's very easy to see that Air Force and Space Force relate, but some think that it is important for the U.S. to learn from its mistakes. An independent Air Force was denied for years until it was seen as important. However, by that time, many lives were already lost. Those who are supporting an independent Space Force are trying to be proactive because it would allow them to be more influential at international level, deter other countries, and be prepared for catastrophic events. Not to mention, many support the Space Force believing it will keep the U.S. as a sole superpower. The Air Force's history could be a very important argument for those supporting the U.S. Space Force, considering if we were proactive on an independent Air Force, we could have potentially saved many lives throughout World War II. Space technology today. Let's look at the three most powerful countries, Russia, the U.S., and China's current space tech. All three of the countries have satellite jamming capabilities, cyber capabilities, and anti-satellite capabilities, which is used for shooting down satellites. China even demonstrated their cyber capabilities on NASA when they hacked one of their satellites. Russia. The only other thing Russia currently has that I haven't stated already is an inspector satellite. I also listed this inspector satellite as an attack satellite because the US claims Russia's inspector satellite is actually a space weapon. The US is currently developing on-orbit repair capabilities which will allow them to repair satellites. On-orbit repair capabilities would basically be repaired from another satellite that has some sort of mechanical arm. The United States' biggest advantage in space is that they have the largest amount of satellites, which is 849. China seems to rather specialize in space considering they are also developing on-orbit repair capabilities, have a laser system for use against satellite sensors, and have military units trained for attacking satellites. Two more advantages China has is they individually own their own space station and have the second largest amount of satellites. As you can see, China appears the most advanced in military space tech, which may seem surprising considering the US and Russia competed greatly in space in the past. A US military official even stated China will soon be able to destroy every satellite in space, according to Zachary Craig. Now that you see how far space tech is today, you could argue that we do not need a space force, but others could say it will keep the US as the most powerful country. The following points on this slide are to demonstrate how a space force would influence international relations through military strength. Military is an important part of international relations because it gives you leverage. The stronger the military, the less other countries will want to oppose you. Repair. As with most equipment, it's cheaper to repair satellites considering just a weather satellite costs $290 million. Creating on-orbit repair capabilities would be huge considering it would save money and allow us to get damaged or hacked satellites running quickly. Attack. If the Space Force worked on getting missiles and other weapons into space, it could be used to their advantage. This would be very important with international relations because the intimidation factor from the weapons could be very beneficial to the US. Intelligence is already a huge part of our military, and having a space intelligence group could be huge on finding and planning terrorist attacks and gathering other valuable information. Defend. The Space Force would allow us to protect our country better on the international level because they can protect us from cyber attacks on our satellites. Space Force would also allow us to defend our country by intercepting missiles. Keep in mind the Space Force will strengthen the US, which will make it more powerful, but it could also hurt international relations because other countries don't want the US to have such dangerous technology. How do other countries view the Space Force? A Space Force really wouldn't help any other countries. In fact, if the US creates a Space Force, it may have a negative outcome on international relations. Allies may oppose a US Space Force because it could lead to less involvement in Allied security considering a lot of military funding will be going towards the Space Force. Other countries the US may not be allianced with would certainly be against the Space Force because of a new threat they may not be able to counter. We should also consider the idea that many countries cannot afford a Space Force or defense system which may make them feel vulnerable. For these reasons, the creation of a US Space Force would greatly hurt international relations with all countries. Russia and China's stance on proposed US Space Force. Russia has been known to compete against the US for years, especially in the Cold War, which almost became a nuclear war. If the US forms a Space Force, it may cause Russia to compete, leading to another Cold War or worse, an actual war. After the announced proposal of a Space Force, Russia and China were quick to respond with opposition. According to the International Business Times, China sees the Space Force as reckless. Another interesting piece of information I found states that the US and China's space race has just started. This idea is important because a US Space Force may cause a great competition between China, Russia, and the US, which could become very deadly. Let's look at the positive and negatives a Space Force would have on international relations. Some positives: a Space Force would keep the US as the most powerful country, could influence other countries, and would strengthen our military and could prevent future events. Some negatives: a Space Force would hurt international relations because it would hurt relations with almost all countries, it would cost a large amount of money, and it could lead to a Cold War or worse, an actual war. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and now see how the Space Force could greatly affect international relations and why the Space Force is so controversial. Thanks for watching.